We are live. And you know what the most important letter of the alphabet is? You know, anybody? What does quality start with? Q. We're in the Q dome. Quist, quality.
Yes.
I had some car issues today, everybody out there, but you know what? That's an auto body thing. If you need a body thing, you're talking to the doctor of body, the Dr. Feelgood for the 21st century. He is the one, the only bad Quist.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Gosh. Thanks, Jack. That's amazing. I love my intro. It's spectacular.
It's got to be different every time, Ben. It got to keep coming up with new ones for you. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm very good. How about yourself?
Good. It's been too long. You've been on the run a lot.
Yeah, it's been very busy at the fitness centers in Grafton, Wisconsin. So
yes.
Mequon. So it's been running.
Form and Fitness for all you kids out there who want to know what the best gym in the world. It's Form and Fitness. The main ship is in Grafton, and then the Mequon, is that strictly for training, personal training in Ben?
Our Mequon location is one-on-one personal training, and that probably is the busiest one-on-one training location in the state of Wisconsin. So
really,
that's what we're known for. I think we are the longest lived personal training. We've been open for 24 years at that location. So
really,
I don't think there were 3 ones that opened when I opened way back in the day, but I think they're all gone. I think it's just me. We're the last dinosaur left.
But you're the last gym standing.
Oh, totally. But that means we have tons of very experienced, really good trainers at that location. We do mostly one-on-one, but we also have small group training too. That's been a new program for us that's been doing really well. So
nice. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll get back to that. But is there something you wanted to talk about in particular in the health or fitness world?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about what my weekly email topic was, but I can't remember if we discussed this last time. Did we talk about my most amazing client?
No.
The astonishing results this guy had.
Right. No, we did not.
We just got to talk about this, and his results they were astonishing. So many times when somebody comes in for personal training or comes into a fitness center, they have a broad variety of different things that they're looking to do. Usually there's losing weight, maybe it's toning up, but many times also there are health concerns. And even though we're not doctors, well, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, but I'm not a doctor. They come in with health concerns that have lifestyle changes make a big impact on it. So one of those would be diabetes. So
yes.
That's one of the biggest disease processes in the United States. It is kind of a precursor to disease that makes you much more likely to have things that are really bad, like heart disease and other problems. But it's a really nasty disease process, and it is something that way too many Americans are struggling with. And I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15% of the entire American population has type 2 diabetes or is diabetic. It's a big number. So this guy was an old client of mine, and every so often, I don't do this too often, but maybe once every 3 months, I'll write an email about a member or a client that is really doing some amazing things, because I just want to share it because, other people should hear about this. So This guy, we'll call him John, that's not his real name, but he came back to me as a client. I don't really take clients, but this guy was like my second client I ever had when I was like 27, long decades ago.
Three or 4 years ago.
Yes. But so, well over 20 years ago, I saw this guy for training, and he did extremely well. Worked with him for, maybe 3 years, lost tons of body fat. He was in his 40s at the time, one of my star clients. And then for whatever reason, life got in the way, and he kind of stopped training, and he stopped doing his fitness program. And fast forward almost 25 years later, he's now 67. I'm 51. You're the oldest living trainer alive. And he comes back, and I couldn't not take him back as a client, because he's like, those are my favorite clients. He was like way back at the very beginning. And he's like, Ben, I really need some help this time. And so long story short, the things that John wanted to work on were, number one, he had progressed from pre-diabetes into full-blown diabetes, which is, for your listeners, the stat that they typically use to identify diabetes is A1C measurements, which is a blood test that looks at how your body has been responding to your blood sugar levels over the course of a 3-month span. So it's like a nice big broad snapshot of how your body is managing its blood sugar levels. Again, it's called A1C. So John had slipped into this point where he was above where he should be, and frankly, I think it kind of worried him and scared him, which it probably should have.
Yeah, it jolted him into action, right?
Jolted him into action, and the one thing about this guy is he's very persistent. Like, you'll tell him what to do, and he'll just be like, "Oh, I'll do it." Where with many other clients, there's a lot of negotiating. Well, I don't want to do that, or that's too much, or that's too little. Like, there's all kinds of negotiation that goes on, but he was just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So I gave him like one of the most extreme plans to try to get him back going to where he needed to be. And the results that happened were just astonishing. And I'm going to share with you in a moment. But the plan that he did was 3 months of intensive strength training, safe, but it's intensive. Like, even as a 67-year-old, you can still lift weights intensely if you select the right exercises and you do them with the proper form. And actually, I would argue that it is more important for someone who's in their 60s or 70s or 80s to be doing strength training at the proper intensity. So first and foremost, proper intensity strength training program, boom. He basically worked out 7 days a week. 3 of those days were strength training, and 4 of those days were cardio workouts on his own, which were a mixture of HIIT training, which is kind of high intensity interval training, with low level cardio like walking. So he kind of peppered those in. So he had 4 of those cardio workouts with 3 of the strength training workouts. He was exercising for roughly 45 to 60 minutes a day, 7 days a week. So does that sound extreme? Probably not to you.
It sounds extreme because I have to ask you. I can hold my question to the end, but your story is going really well, so I don't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay. So, anyways, for many people that would be too much, but like, again, this guy wanted the Rolls-Royce plan of trying to get him where he needed to be. So we implemented that. He also started to change his diet. So we did some things where it wasn't crazy, but we were really changing what he was eating over that course of time, and mainly less processed foods and less refined sugar were the 2 biggies that we're focusing on. And then finally, the last thing, and this is the one that's really wacko, we did prolonged fasting. And I don't work for Prolong. I don't make any money about this particular fasting system, but it's a 5-day fast mimicking plan that you buy. It comes in a box, and it gives you prepared food that puts you into a fasted state, even though you're still eating food. And it is probably the most well-researched fasting protocol in the world. So it was one of the few ones that has legitimate placebo-controlled double-blind research that it's been done on it, and the research is incredibly compelling. So Larry did 2 cycles of prolonged fasting over the course of the 90 days. So basically 10 days out of the 90, he was doing this prolonged fasting system.
Okay.
So then at 3 months pass, he does all this stuff, and then he goes to the doctor, and he has his A1C remeasured. And so he dropped from 7.0 all the way down to like 5.8, 5.9, somewhere in that range, which takes him out of the diabetic range. And this is unmedicated. So the doctor didn't give him any metformin or any medication to try to lower that. He's like, well, let's try it, see what you can do. I know you're pretty dedicated when you get going. So through lifestyle, exercise, and other methods. So when someone has diabetes, the first line of defense sometimes is a medication called metformin. The normal change that someone experiences when they go on metformin over the course of a 3-month span, cited on Google, is anywhere from 1.5 to 2% decrease in your A1C. So that would be 0.14 of a decrease. So if he had just gone on metformin, he would have dropped from 7 to like 6.8. Better, but still kind of sucks, right?
Right.
So he dropped an entire point and then some. So he had, I don't even a percentage base, that's like a 20 or 30% decrease. He had a massive decrease in his A1C, so much so that the doctor was like, did I get the blood test wrong? Or did we get this? Did they get someone else's information get put in here?
Right. And, did you swap a sample?
Do we swap a sample? And he is, we're in our kind of second 3-month phase now. And I'm really excited to see what happens because he had 1 more prolonged fast. You usually do 3 in a year, and then you're done. I'm really curious to see what happens on the next one. Does he go from 5.8 down to 5.3 and become totally normalized? My guess is that he will, because He also additionally lost 12 pounds of body fat over the course of 3 months, and he gained a little bit of muscle tissue. So I've had that with several clients over the last couple of years, and I call that the holy grail when you're losing body fat as you're gaining muscle, where many individuals, if they go on something like an Ozempic type drug, they lose tons of weight, but they lose a lot of muscle tissue, lean tissue, in addition to body fat, which is not the best thing in the world. So that's where sometimes if you don't have that strong strength training component with it, you can get yourself into a little trouble with some of that kind of stuff. So that is my story. And so any questions that you have?
All right. To give a little sense of scale, like when you say 7 to 5, that doesn't sound like much to somebody who doesn't know what these measurements mean. But then you said it's like a 20 to 30% decrease in his, and that count like on a what scale? On a diabetic scale? I don't know, Ben. What are you talking about?
Well, so like I'm just speaking for what I'm getting secondhand from what his doctor said, but the doctor that is incredible. I was worried that we maybe got our results wrong. That is a massive decrease.
Massive decrease.
Yeah, massive decrease.
Is you said he was working out 7 days a week. Normally, that's too much, isn't it? But
nope.
It doesn't matter. No, you can do it every day.
Everybody should move every single day.
Oh,
maybe you get 1 day of rest. Every human body is designed to move every day. You just do different things. So it could be playing pickleball 1 day. That counts for movement. Taking a long walk, taking a jog, strength training. You just want to put different things on each day. You wouldn't be like, I'm going to strength train my legs 7 days a week. That'd be too much.
Okay. So I just had another thing. Oh, okay. He has one more measurement you're going to do with him again, right? And he's continuing to work out with you, though, correct?
Yeah. Yep. We're in our second 3-month phase here, and his doctor is following him every 3 months because his doctor wants to make sure that he gets into a non-diabetic range. But the other thing that's also fascinating me, if you Google, can you reverse diabetes? It would give you the information that kind of the company line is you can't reverse that. Once you're diabetic, you're always diabetic, and I have seen so many people that have been able to, through lifestyle change, reverse it and or get off medication or greatly reduce the amount of medication that they're on, which is I guess my point of this entire conversation is that lifestyle change with that particular disease process, just from what I've seen in my limited experience, is one of the most powerful things you can do to change your blood sugar levels, and your, how your body is integrating with all that.
Well, God bless him for doing the lifestyle changes and not just going whole hog on the drug. I mean, sometimes people say, just give me the drugs, I'm on them. But lifestyle makes so much difference fighting all these diseases. I mean, everything from sleep to diet, and processed food and macronutrients versus not. Huge lifestyle change for this guy. Is he happy? I mean, is he running around like, I can't keep this up forever?
No, yes. If anything, he seems like he's even more motivated now. And when you lose 12 pounds of body fat, that doesn't sound like a lot in 3 months, but most people, when they're like, I lost like 25 pounds, like, okay, well, 5 of it was water weight, then it was stored sugar, then it was muscle tissue, then it was fat. If you lose 12 pounds of actual body fat, that's like the size of a basketball, so it's feeling a lot better. And
it's a dumbbell. If you take a dumbbell and a 12-pound dumbbell, try and hold that out. That's amazing how much difference that makes in a life. And wow. So, and he's 67.
Yep. And that's the other point, is that you're never too old to get started on this stuff. I should preface it. Scratch that. I do think at a certain point it gets too late, and that's him and I kept in touch over the last few decades. And I kept telling him, like, don't wait till you're too old to even do this, where things like arthritis get in the way or different things, we're not able to make the changes necessary, but at 67, many people would say, is that too old already? And it certainly wasn't, no. I'm having to up my weights in the gym because I'm going to make sure that he doesn't surpass me on anything like that. I don't need that kind of stuff going on, so
that's pretty funny. Well, Ben, he's 67 and you've known him. He used to smoke too, if I remember your email correctly.
Yep.
And he hasn't started smoking again, has he? He's
No.
all good on that.
When we first worked together in his early 40s, he dropped that habit, because I won't even, like, if you're going to do that, you might as well not work together, because it's like, that is so destructive to your body. That was the first thing we went after. And like I said, it was really, he's like, okay, I'm stopping. And he just stopped. He's very able to do that kind of stuff, which is one of the things that was impressive. But what he did, any person could do. Like, it's not like it's outside of the realm where it's super crazy. It's just that he was very consistent, and he really followed the plan, and, he's reaping the benefits.
That's fantastic. You're familiar with that? Is it Michael Goggins, the SEAL guy? Have you listened to or read his book, You Can't Hurt Me, or something?
I have not.
The reason I bring it up is just what you said about anybody could do this, because he lost, like, when he decided he was going to go for SEALs in like an incredibly insanely short amount of time, like 100 pounds. I mean, he was way overweight and stuff, but the stuff he was doing, most people couldn't. You just wouldn't be able to do in a normal schedule. So, I mean, it was like, okay, this is really cool. It sounds great, but it's impossible for me. But what you say is the important thing is he's doing well health-wise. But the other critical takeaway is that if you put your mind to it, you can do this. And it's not the tools that he had. You may not be able to do all the things he did, but certainly you can cut out the processed food and train and join a gym and do all that stuff. So it's within your reach, which is very, very, very great to hear.
Well, and the other thing too, and I not that I'm trying to get everyone to do personal training, but if you get a good personal trainer who puts you on a smart exercise plan, many times it's maybe a little bit less than you thought, but we're really looking to optimize your time and making sure that you're spending it in the right places. So A, you're not getting injured, and B, you're getting the right results. So like several of his days, like 2 days a week, I'm like, you just take a slow walk outside with your wife, or like but it has to be an hour, so just that kind of stuff. That's not hard. Like David Goggins, like, and that's where like some of it's like, that's why I don't really read that kind of material, because like, I'm not into like the Herculean type of things where like then a normal person tries it and they blow out their back and tear out their knee and like, are crippled afterwards. I really kind of think that you have to come up with a plan that is sustainable for a average human being to do, which most of us have injuries. Most of us are, everyone's getting older, like it's, and that's why I think some of these fads like CrossFit are dying out, because, these extreme things, like people have to realize it becomes something where you're no longer doing it for your health, because exercise is a U-shaped curve of benefit, meaning that there's a lot of benefit initially, a lot of benefit up to a certain point, and then the benefit caps, and then it starts to be a downside, either from too much stress on muscle tissue, bones, ligaments, discs, where things get ruptured, or you start to overtrain and, you pull too many resources from your body with the exercise that you're doing. So it's about doing the right amount.
And in what you say about whenever you talk about personal training, I always think about it wasn't about physical health at all. It was about mental health. But the analogy is the same. People think, I don't need a trainer. I can do this myself. Well, Olympic athletes have trainers. LeBron James has a trainer. He doesn't do it all himself. The best pitchers in the world, we're in baseball playoffs right now. They have pitching coaches. So this idea that you can do it yourself, maybe to a point, but if you want to really do the job, you need some help to get it done right and the most efficiently. Otherwise, like you said, you could spend 6 months spinning your wheels and not know why. Right?
Well, especially if you're kind of, you just dabble in exercise, or you've been doing the same routine for like, that's the perfect example. Someone's do the exact same thing in the gym they have for the last like 20 years. Like, that's a great candidate to get a trainer to kind of spice up your routine a little bit, or change it a little bit, so yeah. One other point on this client, and this is something that I've thought about, this individual that had this really, and again, I'm not a physician, I can't give medical advice. These are just my own thoughts swirling around in my head. Like, which of those different things that he did, which ones of those really impacted that huge drop he had in that one measurement? Is it the fact that he lost weight? I'm sure that contributed to it. Is it that he changed his diet and got processed foods out of there and sugar? I'm sure that helped. Is it the exercise in and of itself, which has a really strong effect on your body because you utilize up all your blood sugar when you're exercising, and it helps with things like diabetes? I'm sure that helped. But I'm curious, and I'm going to look this up, but in the studies on that prolonged fasting system, they have how much they were measuring blood sugar markers. I'm curious to see what the average drop was. And if I had to guess, because I don't have that information just stored in my head, I bet this guy's drop was way better, because he did everything.
Mm-hmm.
He did that, layered with this, layered with that, so I'm going to do that. Actually, I'll tell you next time when we get on the call.
Okay.
As far as like what was the difference between the average, we know that metformin drops an average of 1.5 to 2% over 3 months if you take the medication, but what do you drop if you just do the 3 prolongs? So,
and you bring up this whole bigger topic to me anyway about diabetes awareness. I think I call it diabetes awareness. I mean, is it just now being a problem, or is it always a problem? We didn't know what it was. The public, and it wasn't diagnosed because nobody thought of testing for it, or that it might be an issue.
No, it's a standard medical test that they do. It's not like the heart scan, which we've talked about before, where it's not a standard test, which is still shocking that is not like the first thing they do to somebody who, as soon as you turn 40, you get your first heart scan. You're like, I'll be doing future videos with my cardiologist buddy about that and why, just talking about like, why do we think that is where is the resistance coming from on that?
Right.
But with diabetes, there are very standard blood tests that they measure in any physical that checks for that. I think it's just become a lot more prevalent because of the state of what people are eating, and then also the fact that up to just very recently, until the advent of all these drugs for obesity, our obesity numbers were just rising, over the last, many decades. So I think that also has increased, the amount of people that are struggling with this particular disease process.
And we talk often about Arnold's newsletter. And this last week he had one, Has Obesity Met Its Match? I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did.
And a couple things that to me, he said like approximately 1 out of 8 Americans are either doing the Ozempic or Wegovy, whatever the other ones are, those type of drugs, whether it's for diabetes or weight loss. That's a huge number.
It's a big number. I have 2 different clients that I'm following right now who started those drugs in the last 6 months. And it's been very interesting watching, because I'm very curious. We're bringing in a physician who administers those to have her talk at Form and Fitness in our winter speaker series. So I'm really excited to have her come speak about upsides, downsides. What is she seen as a person who's prescribing these to this huge multitude of people? But I've been shocked at just the difference between these 2 individuals. Like, one is having a phenomenal weight loss, one is not. One is having a lot more side effects, one isn't. So it's just like, it's interesting. They're not completely benign drugs. Like there can be some issues with them, and they don't always work, but like, or, the case my brother's on, one of those, he's lost like 70 pounds. He looks like he's lighter than me out. That's the first time that's happened in the last, 30 years. He weighs less than I.
So, that's amazing. And I wanted to say, all this is about awareness of what you're doing to yourself. The back to school challenge that Jeremiah's got going right now at Form and Fitness. It's, first of all, to me, it's like seems like the biggest one as far as people who are participating. But also all the different ways people are doing it, and the awareness that he's bringing to not just him, I'm sure other people worked on it as well, but that your gym is bringing to people about the everyday. Today it's the water, always have a glass of water before. Some days it's exercise. Some days it's not. One day it was meditation. Another day it was, the deep squat day almost killed me, but that was, it's not always like that. It's not just physical stuff. So I have to compliment you on that, because that's really been seems to me, not from how you see it, but from my perspective, just the amount of people who are talking about it in a good way, kind of fun, like, oh God, did you get your thing? Really done well. So
that's great to hear. It's the first year we've run that one. It's a new type of, special. It's free to our membership, but I can see that it's working well. I see all the stars accumulating on the giant board downstairs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's really cool. That's good to hear.
It's very cool. I don't know if you have time for this, but I'm going to forewarn you in the coming segment.
Mhm.
I want to ask you, because we've talked about this around close to it a lot of times, but you said like 30 years ago or however many years ago was how did you decide to become a physical trainer and then a doctor of PT, and how did you get into the whole thing? I'm curious about that. I'd like to hear about your personal story as how you got into that. How you did that. Yep. It's too much for right now, but you better start.
I'll noodle on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like because every one of the decisions you've made is a big decision. Becoming a trainer, it's not just fitness. Then you become a trainer. That's a big decision. And then another big decision is I'm going to be PT. And then how many physical therapists are there in the world who don't start gyms? I mean, so you've done a lot of different things, and I'm curious about that journey. That's what I want to catch next time.
Talk about that. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Good. All right. Well, God, that's great news about your client, and it's great news for people. Again, the overall message is you don't have to go crazy to do this. You can do it. Yep. You need some direction. You need some help.
Yep.
To be the most efficient that you can, but it can be done. According
most
to
definitely. Yes. And, and really the time to start is now. It's not, don't put it off. Don't keep thinking you're going to do it. Like once I turn 50, I'm going to start getting into shape. Like just start now. You just get into that everyday habit of moving, which I think is one of the most powerful things you can do. But then secondary to that, start to learn more about your nutrition and what you're eating, and the more knowledge you have on that, the more you might make better decisions,
big time
in that department. Yeah. So
yeah, you've ruined labels for me now. I can't look at it. So no, in a good way. So very cool. Good. Well, good. Thanks a lot, Ben. It's great news about your client, and hope you have a hell of a lot more clients having the same kind of success story, right? Yep. So cool. All right. Jack. Well, thank you. See you next week. Don't be late.
Sounds good. I won't. Bye.
See ya. Bye. Bye, everybody. That was Dr. Ben. He's